Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video, and today is a tarot tag video. Yes, another one that I am doing in response to Marine over at the Waves of Your Soul. This is specifically a tag she created called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 decks. This is not to be confused with the tag that the amazing Kelly Bear made a while ago. I even have that video up on my channel, so I guess I'll have both. That one was a little different, in which you weren't necessarily sharing decks. It was asking about different things, but the one today is all centered around tarot decks, okay? Specifically in a style of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this is inspired by BookTube. I guess this is like a common tag over there. I haven't always seen it, so I don't know, but is what it is. Anyways, let's get into it. Also, yes, my nail polish has been chipped, and listen, I'm too lazy. It is what it is. You guys are gonna just get me at my messiest. I think the decks are more important anyway, so let's get into it. So 5. First, we're going to start with prompt 5, which is 5 decks that made me fall in love with reading the cards. Now, Marine left this open so that you could talk about both tarot and oracle. So I am going to show, I'm trying to look here. I only have a couple of oracle decks, like literally only 2. The rest will mostly be tarot, but let's start with 5 decks in just random-ish order. Let's start with number 1 here. A deck that made me fall in love with reading the cards is this one. This is the Prisma Visions Tarot. But as you can see, this is the version in a tin. And I've talked about this before on my channel. There's videos of it somewhere. This is literally the tarot deck that made me want to really learn tarot so that I could read it. It was not my first tarot deck, but it was the one that made me want to read tarot. These are the backs. I believe these are the backs, even if it's the regular full-size version. The edges are silver metallic. And this deck, why did this make me want to read tarot? So fun fact about me, I've mentioned this a few times on my channel, but if you're new here, I first started reading tarot, I just got out of college, when I first started reading tarot. But this was actually the first deck that I wanted. Okay, this was the first tarot deck I wanted. It did not end up being my first tarot deck, is the thing, but it was the first tarot deck I wanted. When this deck was starting to come out, or it was in early inception or whatever, I was actually a college student still. I was being aware more of tarot. I was watching it. I knew that the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck existed. I knew, there was Thoth tarot. I knew there was a deck about the Hermetic Order. I knew a lot of those classic tarot decks existed. But I don't know how. Maybe it was through Tumblr or something like that. I saw that this deck was being created in its full size. But at the time, well, 1, I was a college student, right? I did not have money to spend on an indie deck. And 2, I also didn't fully know tarot at that time. So it was while I was in college that I started to study the cards. I just studied them. Again, I did not have a tarot deck. I was aware of the traditional decks. I had seen them in stores, but I just did not like the artwork. I really wanted this deck. And so it's funny though, because it wasn't until after I learned tarot and had a couple decks, or I don't even know how many, that I actually got a hold of this little one in the tin, because I decided that I wanted a tin version. If I was going to finally get this deck, I wanted a tin version, a travel size. I could beat up, bang around, do whatever. And so, yeah. But it's so funny that this was the deck that made me fall in love with the idea that, yeah, I could be a tarot reader. I don't have to read those, like, ugly old cards. I was so mean. I was just like, I want a deck with beautiful artwork, I wanted a deck that told a story. that like, you know, tickled at my intuition. I don't know. So this was that, right? So this was the first deck that made me fall in love with the idea of tarot. So I'm including that in here. Even this travel size, you know, good shuffler. But then, of course, we have to talk about my first ever tarot deck, because that actually really made me fall in love with tarot, and just want to keep doing it. Bored to Tears, you guys will be seeing this deck. I talk about it almost all the time, literally, so I'm not going to show this too long. Raven's Prophecy Tarot, edges that I did myself because this deck was beat up. Again, I talk about this every time I pull this deck out. This was my first tarot deck, and this is the one that made me fall in love with tarot. This is the one that I learned tarot on. So, you know, you guys already know the deal with this one. Let me not show it too long. But that deck obviously had to be in the 5 decks that made me fall in love with reading the cards, because obviously it was my first tarot. But then, I'm like looking at the stack trying to judge here. Maybe I'll show this one next. This is the Coastal Curiosities Oracle by Lennox Reese. This is the 2nd edition. This size of the deck, I'm pretty sure, is out of print now. I don't think Lennox has anymore. I don't remember. I don't know. They have a few different ones. They have a pocket size now, and what's it called? There's another edition now. It's called like the Naturalist edition. It won't look like this, but anyways, these are the backs. And it was this Oracle deck that made me fall in love with the idea of reading Oracle cards, because before this deck, I wasn't really sure if Oracle decks were for me. I didn't really have Oracle decks that I was like 100% in love with, right? I didn't know if they were going to do great work for me or not. But then I saw this deck, and it was coming out on Kickstarter, and I was losing my mind, and I could not wait until this deck came to me. It was a whole thing, right? You guys remember, if you've been here long enough, I had a giveaway because I had 2 copies of this deck. I wanted this deck to really become a deck. So I bought 2 copies just to make sure that the Kickstarter could happen. Ended up giving away one of those copies to somebody on the channel. I can't remember. It's been a little while now. And I obviously kept one for myself. And this just made me fall in love with the idea of Oracle decks, because something about this is so perfect. The images, the theme, this is like Pacific Northwest kind of style, great keywords. It just did everything for me, and it made me fall in love with the Oracle decks that also had like a similar idea, right? With at least with the strong keywords. Like this made me realize, okay, I could do Oracle decks, right? Why is this? What is happening here? I don't know what happened. They just flopped around. Anyways, Coastal Curiosities, right? So that was a deck that made me also fall in love with oracles. We're only on 3 of these decks. Let me see here. Next up, this one. This is the Monsoon Tarot. Something about getting this deck. Well, okay, you guys know, I have the mini. I had the mini first, okay? And the mini made me fall in love with this deck in general. But I started to love this deck so much that I bought this big version. And that's what I'm going to show you today, is the standard size version of this deck. These are the backs. Sorry, I was hiccuping. And this deck. I feel like, wait a second. I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, let's start from here. This is another deck that made me fall in love with reading the cards, because it showed me another way. It showed me a dreamy landscape. It showed me, there's some astrological stuff in here too, and elemental symbols and stuff like that too. But this deck really made me fall in love with reading the cards, because I just loved how dreamy, mystical, magical it was. I loved how different it was. I loved that it really just sparked my intuition and gave me such good readings, right? And it was through that experience, that's how I knew it made me fall in love with tarot more, because it made me really feel like I was deep diving into something, into the art, as it were. So I really love this deck, and it is one that made me fall in love with reading tarot and realize that I really wanted more decks like this that were doing interesting, creative things, and they weren't just an RWS clone, you know? It made me fall in love with decks that were different, because I think that's the biggest thing, is I just like decks that are not always doing the same thing with, like, traditionally done, you know? So this made me fall in love deeper with tarot, but so did this deck. This is the Guided Hand Tarot. And this made me fall in love with the idea of collage decks because before this deck, I was really hemming and hawing over the idea of really having collage decks. So I love this deck. It's just so insightful, so interesting, so different. It's one of those collage decks now that has also been around a while, but you know, I don't know. I still talk about this deck a lot. I don't know who else still does, but I really love this one. There's just something about it that is so deep and so personal and just feels like, I don't know, it almost feels like a part of my soul too, but it made me have hope for like what tarot could do again, like, because it's collage based, it's just something different. And for that reason, yeah, I just really knew I was falling deep into tarot and wanted to sustain my practice because of this deck. This is one of them, right? I guess all these that I have shown for the 5, right, are part of that category. They made me want to keep going with tarot. So, Guided Hand Tarot. But let's now move on to prompt number 4, which is 4 decks that challenged me, and this could be either good or bad. I'll be honest, I'm only going to show 4 decks that challenged more my tarot assumptions, like what I realized I did or did not like in tarot decks. Yeah, because if it's a deck that I do not like at all or challenged me in a bad way, chances are I've probably either A, gotten rid of it, or B, it's already heading out the door, and so I don't want to give it any more airtime, and I'm not going to talk about it. So let's show some decks. I feel like with these I'm going in random order. They're not necessarily the order in which I got them, but let's talk about this deck. This is the Zodiac Tarot deck and booklet. So as you can see, this is the one in a tin. This is a US Games deck. Pretty inexpensive, but you guys might be thinking, what exactly challenged me about this deck? Well, if you've been here, you kind of know, but I'll just, I guess, state it again. This deck challenged me because okay, listen, I have a lot of sensory issues with certain cardstocks, and this deck challenged me because I was very intolerant to glossy cardstock. Okay, I am. I still don't like it. I still don't really like this cardstock. See, I went like that, and you can see my fingerprint on it, right? It's not great. It's not great. It actually isn't. Maybe this is like an in-between. I don't love it. I don't hate it for the cardstock. This is not a great cardstock, though. Straight up, it's not. Sorry, but it's not. And so this deck challenged me. When I got it, okay, I love the artwork of this deck. And I got it because I thought I was being sneaky by buying the tin version, because I thought it would have the same exact cardstock as US Games' other tin decks. Most of their tin decks do not have this nasty glossy cardstock. They are normal cardstock. They're fine. And so because I had all those decks, I thought that this would have the exact same cardstock. And when it didn't, I was so pissed. I felt like I was cheated in a way, because the normal size version of this deck has the same exact cardstock. It is, and again, it's gross. So I thought I was being sneaky. I thought I was challenging the system. No, it pushed back and it said, psych, this is a nasty cardstock you get. Do you want this deck still? Well, then you have to accept it. And so it challenged me. And I don't know, at first, I almost thought I was going to get rid of it. I was like, I can't deal with this cardstock. I don't even like touching it very long still. But at the same time, I've almost become like, I don't want to necessarily say trauma bonded, but like I ended up using this deck to do quite a few readings, and those readings worked. So there's something about this artwork that's still intriguing enough that I just like want to keep it anyways. So I guess that's how it challenges me, right? Is like, okay, this really is a bad cardstock for you. Yes, it's not your greatest sensory needs. So do you actually like it? Yes, no, kind of thing. And oh man, it challenges me every day. It challenges me every time. But at the same time, I don't know, I like it. This one is a very love-hate relationship. I just really wish they hadn't gone with this cardstock for a 10, but it is what it is. It's a lot. Anyways, another deck that challenged me. This is an Oracle deck. This is a Citadel Oracle. And you might be thinking, how did this challenge me? Clearly, you can see it says a fantasy oracle, and that's literally my brand, right? Is fantasy. So you would think this wouldn't be a deck that challenged me, but the reason why it really did challenge me. Oh, and by the way, I have the special edition, so the edges are red. Anyways, and these are the backs. This deck challenged me because, as you can tell from the artwork, it is mostly black and white with copper foiling and red as the only other accents. So this deck basically only has 4 colors: black, white, copper, red. And this challenged me because I have said it once, I have said it again, I will probably say it until the end of time. I am not somebody who can do black and white decks or very limited color scheme in general. I cannot. I don't know, I'm a color person. I have to have color. I have to have vibrancy. I can't do limited color scheme, monochromatic, whatever. I cannot. Some people, that's their shit. They only want that. Cool. I cannot. And so, because of that assumption that I've always had, I almost didn't get this deck, despite this deck being my brand, right? Because it's fantasy. But I think the only reason why this deck works for me is because it is 4 colors instead of just the black and white. The foiling, the way that each card looks different when it's presented, right? I think those are the only reasons why this deck managed to pique my interest enough to get it. Otherwise, this would have been a no. I actually really like the cardstock of this deck too. It's different. It's not the typical glossy Liminal 11. By the way, sorry, I'm gonna be that bitch during the pot. I heard that Liminal 11, the people who made this, especially the special edition, I heard they're in deep shit right now. Just so you know, the special edition, you cannot get this right now. And I found out about it because the creator of this deck, it says Fez Ink, right? But I think they go by something else, a different name now. They were not being paid. They were not being paid by Liminal 11 for having produced this deck. So that's the only thing I'm a little pissed about. You cannot get the special edition right now. I don't know about the regular, but they were not being paid, and I find that really fucked up. I hope something gets resolved with that. I hope Liminal 11 fixes their shit because they haven't been paying creators, and that's really dumb and annoying. But otherwise, yeah, thinking about the deck, it challenged me. I love it now, but it almost did not be what it was. Okay, so Citadel Oracle. What is that? 3, 2. How many do we do? 2. Another deck that challenged me and my tarot assumptions and oracle assumptions is this deck. This is in this big container because the other box was so annoying for it. This is a Nova Monday. No, not Nova. Yeah, no. Nova Witch. Haha. I almost said something else. I was thinking of somebody else entirely. This is a Nova Witch Tarot. This deck challenged me for 2 reasons. The first is its enormous size. I don't know if you guys can tell. Maybe you can on camera. Okay, I have small hands, and this deck is way too long for me. It's just too big. So first wise was size. It challenged me in a size way. I almost didn't want to get this deck because I realized how big it was. The other reason why this deck challenged me has to do with the artwork. The artwork of this deck, as you can see, is very beautiful, but it leans more towards modern and once again has that black and white thing going on. Well, not completely. As you can see, this card has more color. You see blues and reds and stuff. This one has greens and tan. I think that's why this deck works, is that it does incorporate other colors besides black and white, even though black and white is still a big theme of this deck too. Right, so from a color perspective, once again, challenged me. Size perspective, this deck challenged me. But also just style. I don't usually like decks with a lot of people. And this deck still, not 100%, but this deck does edge more towards being modern. And I don't always do modern decks very well either. I don't know. It's kind of strange in its composition. It kind of skirts the edges of being like a few different things. But I'm obsessed with the line work, the almost comic book feel of this deck. And it's for that reason that I love it, despite the fact that it challenged me to hell and back. If you're wondering about the shuffle for this for me, so yeah, as you can see, this deck is, I can hold it like this. The bottom goes flying off into the distance, and I can only shuffle the deck this way. If I try to reach my, look at this. Look at how ridiculous this is. Like my hand, like, it's like struggling and it hurts. No, cannot do it sideways like I normally do. I can only shuffle this deck overhand like this. Or my typical tarot pattern where I'm like, laying out a bunch of cards and, constantly going over them and blah, 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 my pattern, that's the only way I can handle this deck, and that sucks, but at the same time, I really like it. It's just kind of annoying at the same time, too. So, yeah, this is the Nova Witch Tarot. This is a Blue Angel deck, by the way. This is mass market, but I hated the bag it was in, or the box it was in, so I got it this nice big bag, and it fits the deck nicely. But finally, in here, we have the fourth deck of 4, right? The 4 decks that challenged me. We have in here the Teeny Tiny Tarot. My box is beat up. I should just get rid of it. It was broken from the start. This tuck box is not great. Anyways, these are the backs. And you might be thinking, why did this deck challenge me? It challenged my assumption that I could not deal with pip decks a lot. I used to scream back and forth. I don't like pip decks. I don't like them. I can't have them. I don't want them. Blah, blah, blah. Right? I used to just always say that. I did not want pip decks. But then I realized how much I loved this deck, and I was like, wait a second. I think it's because this deck challenged my assumption in the sense that I don't like straight up pip decks, but this deck and decks similar to it that I now have because of this one, I like pips with feelings decks. I like decks where, yeah, it's pips kind of, but you can get some sense of what the card still is talking about by looking at it still. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily lose all the meaning. So I don't know. This deck challenged that for me, and it's got the right amount of cute and creepy that I like it. Oh, I also don't like, this is, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? This is the Queen of Pentacles. Does this look like the Queen of Pentacles to you? Probably not. Its court cards are not great. That's the other thing. I don't like the queens and kings in this deck. So that also challenged me because I love the court cards and I just thought they weren't doing much for me. But despite all that, I love this deck. I love its bridge size. It is perfect in that way. Cardstock's on the thicker side. I would not recommend riffling this. Please do not. You would probably snap your card in half. Yeah, just, you can see it barely bends, right? It does snap back if I go like this, but it barely bends. So don't do that if you decide to find this deck. But yeah, Teeny Tiny Tarot definitely challenged my pips. I do like pips with feelings decks now. I can fully say that. But it took having a good pip deck, like pip with feeling deck like this, for me to decide that I liked them. So yeah, but let's move on. Prompt number 3 is 3 decks that feel, oh no, 3 decks that I would recommend to anybody. Let me show these all at once and then explain kind of why I would recommend these ones to anyone. And they all have big boxes, so that's fun. Okay, these are the 3. We have Tarot of the Divine, Cosmic Wisdom Tarot, and the This Might Hurt Tarot. And I'm going to explain why I would recommend these decks to anyone. Well, first off, these 2 are now this is mass market. This is now mass market. I have an indie copy of this. This one is indie. But there's a reason why I would recommend all 3 of these, okay? And it mostly has to do with the fact that I feel like a lot of people who get into tarot like cards that have people in them, okay? They do. I don't always, but you know, most people do. These are the backs of tarot. Wow, where's my life? Where's my brain? This is Tarot of the Divine backs. These are the fronts. I would recommend this deck to anyone because I think it shows a lot of diversity. These are tales from around the world, okay? So diversity, check. Different bodies, check. Not necessarily disability, but different bodies, different people, even some animals, check, right? It has all those things. This deck is very accessible in that way. It's very cheap in that way. It is mass market. And you could really sink your teeth into these cards. The images are good. They align very well with the tarot RWS meanings. And so for that reason, I would recommend them. And they're also more fantastical. So if you know people want a more fantastical deck that has a lot in it, and you could really do a tarot study, do a whole thing, because this has a lot of shit now, right? It has a big book that goes into all the stories tied to this deck. It also has a journal. I have both of those things. I even heard there's like a sticker book now for this shit. I'm like, oh my God. People can basically do anything with this, right? It's got everything. It's literally got everything for anyone. So for that reason, right, it makes it a no-brainer. This is a deck I would recommend for literally anybody of any background. Like, yeah, you want a deck? Okay, get this one, right? Do I love this box though? No, I hate this box. Maybe one day I will completely get rid of it. I don't know. But anyways, this is one deck I would recommend for everybody. This is another one. This Might Hurt Tarot. I would recommend this deck to most people and pretty much anyone because, okay, these are the backs. These are the fronts. I would recommend this deck to most anybody because this deck has a good balance of being like dystopian but modern. So it's got some fantastical elements, but you can tell that all these people are real people. This deck is very diverse. Also, check, right? It's mass market now, so you know anybody can get this deck. And it follows RWS pretty closely too. So I think this is also good for people for that reason. It covers everybody. I feel like, again, most people like tarot decks. I think a good majority of people like tarot decks that actually feature people. I'm probably one of those weirdos in the minority that doesn't always want tarot decks with people. So a lot of my other tarot decks have all kinds of random shit, right? But this feels more safe, more neutral of a deck that I think a lot of people could enjoy and dive into tarot with. Now, is it always a kind deck? No. It's not always a kind deck. But I think this is a deck I would recommend to anyone, especially if they're not squeamish about nudity. This deck does have a bit of nudity, so there is that. But I do think this is a good recommendation for most people, so this is why I included it in anyone. But finally, deck number 3 for 3, the Cosmic Wisdom Tarot. This is an Ethany deck. Yes, this also is in the category of big boxes that I want to chuck into the ocean, but in the meantime I still have it in its big giant box. But I would mostly, okay, wait, these are the backs, holographic, foiling, holographic edging, just like the others. What is it with me and decks with edges? I don't know. Love them, don't care. Anyways, that's not the topic. This is the topic. Why would I recommend this deck to anybody? Because once again, it also bridges the line between fantasy and reality with people that are diverse. Okay, diversity. This deck also has diversity. This is an age diversity too, by the way. It's not just young people. It's not just old people. It's not just white people. This deck's got everyone, right, covered. This deck feels fantastical, but there's also scenes like this that feel like they could take place in our world. It's literally got all those vibes while also being in a cute style. It also follows the RWS very closely. And so for that reason, I would recommend this deck to anyone, especially if they are someone who was like me and did not want the traditional, right, RWS artwork, just the traditional that they usually just try to pass you off in the store, right? The regular coloring of the Rider-Waite-Smith, where it's garish colors and you're just not having a good time. You could have this instead. And it is perfect. And it has all the esoteric meanings and everything you need, right? So I think this is a really good one. I want to work with this more. I think this deck, when I decide to actually start reading more professionally instead of what I've been doing, which is reading mostly for friends, family, coworkers that know I do tarot and don't give a shit. But when I branch out from that, and tarot club, because I do read at tarot club. I can't call it tarot club. It's my tarot meetup. But besides them, I think this would be a very good client deck. And also it's very neutral, right? It does show diversity, but it's not going to offend anyone, because I would have also, by the way, if we were living in a better world where not everybody was always a piece of shit, sorry, I would have also recommended the queer tarot, because that one shows queerness and how beautiful people are being queer and all that jazz too. But some people are bigots, and so if you need to be careful who you're reading a tarot or doing a tarot reading for, this is probably a safer option for you. So yeah, Cosmic Wisdom Tarot. Those are 3 decks that I would recommend to everybody. But let's get on to prompt number... Ooh, wait, no. This is 5, 4, 3. Now we're on 2. Whatever. 2 decks that feel like they were made specifically for me. For me. For me. Not really anybody else. Although I feel like a lot of people's taste nowadays align. It's become cool now. But when I was a kid, I would have been fucking bullied. And I kind of was for liking this, but let me explain. These 2 decks right here. These are 2 decks that were made for me because they cover D&D and fantasy and also science fiction, dystopian, all these kind of things. Let me go into them, okay? We'll start first with this deck. This is the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. And this is, I should say, the more updated version, because there was like, I think it was the first couple printings or first printing or something where there was an insanity where they did not have the titles, okay? They did not have the titles here. I'm like, what? How can you give that to people, especially if you want them to actually read tarot? But anyways, these are the backs. I've edged mine in black. It does not come like this. I edged it to match the deck, okay? But I love this deck. This deck feels like it was made for me because it covers Dungeons and Dragons, but it also gives me if someone was not into D&D, but you knew they were into fantasy, you could still read for them with this deck and they would pretty much understand what the fuck was happening, right? And I have done that for people before too. But I love it because it does follow D&D. There's a lot of things I recognize, but it is also fantastical in general and covers a lot of the fantastical themes that I not only love to watch in movies and stuff, but also in books and to write, okay? I love fantasy. This is my fave. Some people have a really hard time with this deck, though. I notice not everyone is a fan of the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. And I know that because some people, this is one of like this most popular videos on my channel, by the way, is this one where I did an in-depth walkthrough where I was explaining a bunch of shit that I was finding in the cards. I have some people who've commented on that video and they've been like, I don't know. I don't like all the choices. I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. But I'm still going to be over here loving this deck. So, okay. You know what I mean? So in that way, this deck feels like it was made for me because I love every single thing about this. If I thought that more people wouldn't be put off by this deck, I would read it actually more for people because this is one of the easiest decks for me to read. I was reading this for like friends who also love D&D though, and they were like, holy shit, I love everything happening here. This is amazing. And I was like, yeah, right? This is like great. But this isn't, I don't know, not everybody likes this, especially because the bottoms, let me explain. Okay, intelligence is the suit of swords. Strength is for wands. Wisdom is for cups. And charisma is for pentacles. And not everyone's a fan of that. It goes with D&D, right? This is for D&D people. This is not for everybody. But I even agree that strength and charisma probably should have been switched about which element they were covering. But even then, I don't give a shit. I love this. This is my brand. And so it's mine. I don't care. Whatever. Anyways, moving on. This deck also feels like it was made for me. This is the Eldritch Overload Tarot. And it also, interestingly, covers D&D. But as it says, it is a fantasy cyberpunk tarot. And so this feels like it was made for me because it covers everything I love in the world. I love fantasy. I love cyberpunk. I love D&D. Why wouldn't I have loved this deck? The back is a fucking mind flayer with holographic edging. Like, hello. It's for me. I love shiny things. Okay. Love this deck, love it. Would read this also more for other people if I didn't think they were going to be like creeped out by some of the stuff in here. I don't know. Some cards this deck decides it's not going to shy away from, but this deck feels very much like a me deck. This is for me. See, it's because of this. Things like this. I'm like, I don't think everyone would like a reading with this, but I love this deck. I love this deck. I always think about this deck, and I'm always like, oh man. Yeah. It's my brand. If people were to ask me like, ooh, what kind of decks do you think like reflect you the most? I would say this one. This is one of them. This is me. This is me. And it's so funny because it's not like I always love cyberpunk, but at the same time I do. Like, I don't know very many books that are like cyberpunk written, so I tend, when it comes to like reading fiction and stuff, I tend to gravitate more to the fantasy. But I love cyberpunk. I love the idea of this being a fantasy cyberpunk. And also, I think another reason why I really love this deck is because it vaguely reminds me of a story idea I wrote like some years back now that did not get to take off the ground, but I loved that book so much, and this vaguely feels like the world of it too. So I think that's another reason. I don't know. And for that reason, this is deck number 2 of a deck that I felt like was made for me. But finally, we are going to get into the last deck here. This is one deck, just one deck that I cannot shut up about. And it's this one. This is the Spark and Pen Tarot. Spark and Pen Tarot. I don't want to shut up about this deck. I love this deck too. Ever since the moment I got this deck, I was in love with it. And I always think about this deck and I'm like, man, I just want to pull it out. And I have to tell myself, Livy, you cannot always have this deck. You are supposed to be using your collection better. So yeah, you need to put it away. But these are the beautiful backs. I love this linen cardstock. It is so bendy, flexible, goes every which way. If I was a riffle shuffler, I would be even more obsessed. This deck works so well. And I will never shut up about this deck because I love everything about it. I love the colors. I love the style. I love how intentional it is, despite the fact that, as you can see, there's not a whole shit ton that's going on here. This deck does, funny enough, have more nudity in it, which is not usually my jam, but I think the only reason why I like it is because of the way it's drawn, possibly. I have no idea. Oh, I love the strength card. So cute. I love the colors. I love everything about this deck, and I will never stop talking about it. I don't care. I want more people to like this deck. There's only... I think I only know it's me and I forget their name. You know who you are. You know who you are. Every time I show this deck, you comment about it. And you love this deck too. And thank you for loving this deck too. It's like me and one commenter. We're the only 2 people who really love this deck, but bless us. Because this deck is great. I don't know. I don't have to explain it to you. It is what it is. I just love this deck. And, yeah. I love this deck. Oh, I've also taken this deck to my tarot meetups when I was doing, like, readings with this deck. People were, like, they loved it, though. They were like, wow, I love that deck. Where can I get that deck? And I had to be like, yeah, it's on Etsy. And, like, sending them that way because they also liked it. And so, yeah. I don't want people to shut up about it. It is what it is. Anyways, if you were watching this video this long, I feel like today I was babbling a bit. I'm in this is the weird time of day, guys, where I stop making sense, okay? It's like 5 something in the afternoon. I don't make sense anymore, but I wanted to film this because I saw Maureen had posted this. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to peace out now, but I'll see you guys around next time. Bye!